Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Here is part 2 of our eclipse season, and we have Andrea Michelle, visionary astrologer of PreciousHumanBirth.com, is back with us. Thank you so much for coming back. Oh my goodness. How are you, Andrea?
I'm good. I'm in the midst of eclipse season, just like everyone else, but it's good. Yeah.
My hair, I live coverage of the eclipse. My
I
hair
love it.
is my hair is being eclipsed. It's that fixed signs. We've been through it. If you have planets in fixed signs, my complete sympathies. But all kidding aside, all right. For those of you who don't know Andrea Michelle, oh my God, if you're new to the channel, welcome, and you're going to love this podcast. She is awesome. I've had her on several times, my star sister. We opened this conversation for this eclipse season 2 weeks ago. So if you haven't had a chance, do watch that, the Aries solar eclipse. So here's the bookend. Now we're coming into the South Node lunar eclipse in Scorpio. So we're going to be talking about this and what we might expect and all the evolutionary potentials for what this how this eclipse is going down and what's in store for all of us. I think just for starters, Andrea, what really what really gets me going with this is the fact that it is a South Node lunar eclipse. So lunar, and a full moon in Scorpio is always intense. Full moons are emotional and about completions and culminations. Scorpio, yes, but lunar eclipse, South Node, if you're feeling very pressure cooked, understood. But there is some gold. They say there's gold in them thar hills, and so that's what we're really going to delve into on this podcast: is where do we find the gold in the midst of what feels like death and loss and suffering and can be very painful. There's some endings that can be showing us our shadow, and so I know you're always very, very, very devoted to delving in and meeting that shadow. So just want to hear, what would you like to say about that?
Great introduction, by the way, not about me, but just what you just said about, and I liked the way you threaded it about the gold in them thar hills. That's always the opportunity, whether it's an eclipse or not, but eclipses really highlight and provide windows outside of time where karmic knots can be loosened.
Oh, I love that. Where karmic knots can be loosened.
But we have, as maybe your listeners who've heard me before say, it's not like a dispensation that we're suddenly blessed with. We have to choose to meet ourselves in those places. And the more either we're dragged into them fighting, which a lot of times we are, and we can also courageously volunteer to make it a habit to meet ourselves, or to be honest, or just devote ourselves to attending to the places where we are still hidden from ourselves on a regular basis. Maybe not daily, but on a regular basis. Make it a habit. And that's something that Ceres in this chart is inviting us to. But before we get there, I wanted to share something around what you said about the moon in Scorpio. The node, the South Node, has been going through Scorpio now for some time, right? So we're at the very, very end of the transit through Taurus and Scorpio. And because the nodes move backwards, the beginning degrees of a sign with the nodes is the most intense. It's the most like pressure cooked, like you said.
Pressure cooked, right?
So we've had the last 18 months, well, 16 months until the nodes move into in July into Aries and Libra, of really our shadow getting kicked up personally and collectively. So this is kind of like a final swan song of where have we still not been attending to some karmic patterns that are asking us to find the love that lives even there. And we're going to go into that in a second too, right?
I love that. The love that lives even there.
And the moon is on the fixed star Zubanil-Ganubi, which is the southern, before the larger constellation of the Scorpion got broken down into where the claws were, then became the scales of Libra. Zubinil-Ganubi is now in the southern scale of Libra, and Zubinil-Ganubi, by all accounts, is reconciling some karma. And reading from Nick Fiorenza in his book Astronomical Astrology, Zubinil-Ganubi is about undressing unfinished business and overcoming patterns, old patterns. So that's karma. And so we have another opportunity, especially in this eclipse window, this highlighted window of potential, to not go in with our minds and dig up dirt in order to fix something, but where are we available to open ourselves to letting our bodies, the wisdom and the shadow contained in our bodies open itself to us gently in right proportion to what we are available for. We are such a culture of overwhelm and picking too much. That's one of the reasons why we say no to going into some uncomfortable places, because we've been sold a false bill of goods of what comfort is, and that we always have to search for being comfortable. But like you said, your teacher said, comfort is death.
Yes.
Comfort is literally, it's saying no to life, because life is so much more complex than all of that. Life is, well, this is not an existential discussion about life, but
sure it is.
Sure it is. There's so many pieces in this chart.
We are not shallow women, anybody, in case you're wondering. Not me, not her. If you need shallow, you got to go to another channel.
Find it somewhere else. Yeah.
Find it somewhere.
Oh, yeah. So there's just Eris with Jupiter in quincunx to Ceres. Ceres is such a big part of this. The matrix here. She was only 1 degree away from where she is now at the solar eclipse 2 weeks ago. She is at 23 degrees Virgo in opposition to Neptune, and with Venus in a T-square with the two of them. So for me,
I can pull the chart up here.
One of the themes of this eclipse is, where is love in all of this? And even what is love? So Ceres in Virgo, surrendering to truth. Relative truth, Virgo. Opposite Neptune in Pisces, surrendering to ultimate truth. As human beings, we cannot know ultimate truth other than through relative truth at any moment. Relative truth is the doorway into ultimate truth. And the only way ultimate truth can make itself known to us as a human is through our human hearts.
Wow. I don't know if you can hear this, but just as you said that, this big fire engine came down the street. And I always say, when fire engines, I've programmed my consciousness. I learned this from a friend. When you hear a fire engine, here it is. It's loud, like pay attention. Like it's the cosmic highlighter pen of what you're saying. So maybe you want to repeat that if you don't mind.
Yeah, that's great. So surrender and access to truth without love can be harsh. If we're making it a mission to fix something, Virgo, or get to the truth of something, Pisces, but there's no love or self-respect for ourselves involved in the pursuit of it, it can be just another form of cruelty, of hidden cruelty, of shooting ourselves, of making ourselves wrong, of perpetuating a pattern of suffering and separating ourselves, because truth,
sabotage.
Yes. And so Venus is highlighting, where is love in all of this? And what, question mark, in Gemini, what is love? Maybe love isn't what we thought it was. Maybe we need to surrender more deeply into the suffering, Virgo, Ceres and Virgo, trusting in the love that exists in our hearts to hold us, even if we can't recognize it and it's nebulous, Neptune, at first. But developing the increased capacity, as Venus is still in her remembering and embodiment phase as an evening star, gaining height getting even higher and brighter over the course of the next, weeks and a couple months. She's illuminating that love is here. It's as close as it can be seen, touched, smelled, tasted, but it exists in our hearts first and foremost, because we have all sorts of illusions too, Neptune and Pisces, around what love is. That might be old ideas of what love is based on a historical attachment. Theories can be attachment to, an attachment to reality, how we want life to be, how we feel love should feel. But is it actually love with a capital L? And
Right.
so this is the open invitation. Can we meet our shadow? Can we meet the places that are longing to come back to us as our vital essence, no longer suppressed in our shadow? And the only way we can do that is in our hearts and with love. And again, with Eris and Jupiter in this chart too, in a quincunx series, we're looking to form in our hearts a relationship and ask ourselves, are we still trying to figure out what's wrong? Or are we wanting to fix? Or are we using what's here as the path? Even what's uncomfortable, especially what's uncomfortable. That is the path, getting comfortable being uncomfortable.
Right.
That is Moon in Scorpio. I know this one. I have Moon in Scorpio. And also Uranus and
Uranus
Taurus.
and Taurus, right? For 5 years, Uranus and Taurus has been banging this drum. 5 years to the
Yes.
month. It was May. I can still remember getting comfortable with being uncomfortable. And the fact that Uranus is in that direct opposition with the lunar eclipse. So it's like integrating this part of ourselves, which has been traumatized, right? Uranus being a very much a significator of trauma in the Taurus, in the body, and reconnecting, and the liberation that occurs, getting chills saying this, the liberation that occurs when we integrate and face that shadow, deal with the trauma. But like you always say, it's not dealing with it from our heads, but we maybe we start with our head, but we bring that down into our body. And how does that feel? And so that is the doorway to the regeneration of ourselves with the moon in Scorpio. It's beckoning, like, go into this uncertain, unknown area, because there is gold in them Nar Hills. There is gold in that underworld, and that underworld is going to reprogram and regenerate us, and we're going to emerge like the phoenix. Eclipses are always like something ends, and it's a major ending and a major beginning, and there's no going back. If we take this invitation of the eclipse and bring it into our body and really feel what we feel, there is this outrageous new beginning.
Yes, and sometimes it takes a while for it to come to fruition.
Right. Taurus, it's over time, slowly rolling forward.
And Virgo is all about cycles and timing, learning the cyclical nature of reality, relative reality, right? We talked about the spiral, right? Originally, I think in our last one, the spiral being a beautiful merging of linear and nonlinear, right? Because it implies a going back to where we've been, but depending on how much we've integrated since the last time we were at this place in another rung of the spiral, we might have more of a capacity to hold ourselves, to have love, to trust in our hearts, love, to hold us in an experience, even though it still might be uncomfortable. But we have more of us. We have more of ourselves in alignment with what's happening and not fighting it so much. So it's
speaking
speaking
when you said fighting, ding, I thought Mars, here's the ruler, the ruler of the solar eclipse is Mars. The ruler of the lunar eclipse is also Mars. It just happens to be, in that we're beginning to cross over with our eclipses into the Aries Libra axis, which will be, in the fall. We'll, fully see that. But yes, with Mars is the ruler of this eclipse, but Mars in Scorpio behaves differently. Mars, than Mars in Aries. And so maybe if you could talk about that a little. Mars in Scorpio, and the fact that Mars is in Cancer at this for this eclipse, and so the moon is in Mars's temple and Mars is in the moon's temple. So there's what we call in ancient astrology, you know, mutual reception, and they're both in exile and fall, and so that sounds very scary, but it's all good. There's a regenerative aspect here that's coming forth, that it's asking us to look at. But I just wanted to hear what did you have to say about that?
Yeah, you know, I wish I could remember. I read this somewhere years ago. I wish I could credit the astrologer, but I don't know who said it. But I heard, and it stuck with me, someone saying that basically Cancer is Scorpio in a house frock.
Wait, what was that?
Cancer is like Scorpio, except it has a nice house frock on. I think she
Oh,
was
a house of rock.
like a nice apron on, right? Cancer could be, as like you were saying earlier before we got on, something about, you know, Cancer, the nature of Cancer in its coherence and maturity is vulnerability. The vulnerability to come into our human self. In all the iterations, there's a loss. There's an intimacy with grief as fundamental to the human condition. But it's not grieving for anything. It's just grief as, I call grief like the universal solvent. And it is part of the matrix of being human. So to be tender, to allow ourselves the tenderness of being human, which grief facilitates, is truly becoming intimate with the archetype of Cancer. But there's also the archetype of fear within Cancer, because there's fear in there. There's the fear of coming into the reality of being human, where the rules are a little bit shifty and sketchy. Hence the Capricorn need to like create a system to function, but the systems can get calcified, and we won't go through the whole Capricorn Cancer axis now. But the point is, with Mars and Cancer, if we're not willing to be vulnerable, and vulnerability doesn't mean just allowing people to be a doormat. That's not what I'm talking about when I talk about vulnerability. Vulnerability is something that only can happen in the heart. Vulnerability is the tenderness of being tender, of not having to have our shit together all the time.
And that's an act of courage.
It is an act of courage. You got it.
With Mars, you know, think courage.
Yes.
Courage to be vulnerable.
The courage to be vulnerable. And the underbelly of that, Mars and Cancer, is vulnerability as weakness. We conflate true vulnerability with weakness. So it's like going against, I'm not going to be vulnerable because that positions me as weak. Or I take things personally, emotionally, so I'm going to attack. It's so hard with Mars, very instinctual, very, direct and active, to give ourselves the pause to allow more space. But Mars is in a sextile with Ceres here, and he's also in a trine to Uranus. So Mars is this point of, are we going to give ourselves this pause on the spiral, not linear? Right. You did something to me, I gotta, I'm feeling triggered, so I have to respond right away. Where is there the space? And in a eclipse portal, there's always space. We have to be willing to drop out of our heads response to it, and believing our nervous system immediate responses, and provide ourselves the space to, like, where is there something here that I don't know yet, that I can't know yet, and allow it to reveal itself. And this takes practice. And again, if we start practicing it through in an eclipse window, this provides the fuel for that phoenix rising in the future. The phoenix isn't going to happen immediately. It takes time, it takes dedication, devotion even. Coming back to Ceres for a moment. Virgo, she's affiliated with the sixth house often. Creating habits, developing habits. That's the whole point of ritual, Virgo. Ritual, the sacred, making the sacred here, not looking for the sacred, trying to fix what is in the way of the sacred, as if the sacred is something that's elsewhere. that we have to make room for. Yeah, we have to make room for it, but where is the room we have to make for it? In our own unconscious belief structures, hidden in our shadow, that the sacred can exist here. And that's the devotion and the faith that's being fanned and fueled with Jupiter and Aries right now. The faith to just keep making choices, the faith to have the sacred be here, not through wishful thinking, but because in my heart, I know it's so. And that love, that Venus is at the middle of this T-square. It's asking, where is love in all this? Where can I be tender in my heart? Allow myself to be vulnerable, even if it's just for a few seconds at a time. Because there's so much coherence. The vulnerability, the grief starts to magnetize to us the places of incoherence, the places of suppression. And that's why we get scared, because then we're no longer in control. But guess what? If we're voluntarily choosing to be vulnerable, we are actually in charge. Our greater being is now in control, not our gripping ego mind. And that's the lower expression of Ceres and Virgo. Maintaining a grip and an attachment on what I can control, on the reality that I want. Even if I have to idealize and project it on to make it's going to be better in the future. It's going to be better. It's better on the other side, Neptune.
Right.
It sucks and I hate it. And I'm going to focus on the suffering. But it's going to get better later. I'm telling myself a bunch of different affirmations to get me out of this pickle. Instead of, well, maybe the pickle that I'm in is exactly the journey that I'm here to discover now. The journey of faith, of new choices, of new habits.
Right. That about escaping it. Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
Beautifully said. Thank you. And I love that with Venus in that square with Ceres and Neptune, it's like Venus is this giant heart love presence. It's like the square. It's like that she's like elbowing in there, like, hey, don't forget me. What about me? And Venus and Gemini for this eclipse. It's like, hey, you know what? Let's shift our conversation or our story about what this all means. Let's consider this in a new place. Let's flip the table here and play with it and just be light. I think of Venus and Gemini. It's like, let's be curious about this and wondrous, like the youth of the Mercury archetype of that youthful inquisitiveness. And like, what would it be like? So it doesn't have to be scary and heavy. We can take these things on and it's like, hey, it's okay. We have this safety. The universe wants us to look at these things. It's giving us the gift of this fallen, exiled lunar eclipse, the gold of this, and it's discovering these things.
I love that. I love absolutely everything you just said, because Gemini is also, it's alchemy ruled by Mercury.
Right.
And the alchemy happens in the heart, right? So I love that. And Mercury is the puer now. He's morning star and he's in Taurus. So it's like, where is this fresh Taurus, new energy? We don't have to get mired in the negativity that Scorpio South Node can be, Scorpio moon. It can be all about staying in the negativity, what's wrong. And shadow work isn't about going into what's wrong, it's just going into what's occluded, what's hidden.
Right.
And sometimes what's hidden is our grandeur, our love, more of our capacity to know and experience love, as in, again, capital L love. Not romantic love, not love because it's easy when things are going well, but where does love live when things are shitty?
Right.
That's the invitation of this eclipse is, and even if I can't feel it right away, being honest with that I can't feel it right away is loving me.
Right.
Virgo is self-honesty. The road to truth is through self-honesty. I had a beautiful client this morning, if I can share it for a minute.
Sure.
She was sharing something with me about, anyway, Chiron. She had North Node in Virgo, and she was talking about music, and how music to her is so exquisite sometimes that it breaks open her heart, and she doesn't know what to do with a broken open heart. So she has to put it away. And throughout the course of the session, the way she was speaking about her realization of something, but that she wasn't available for it yet, that level of exquisite honesty, that is a form of love. Instead of creating a story for herself that she is available for it, which maybe she is on some level, but in her human, tender, vulnerable heart, she's not yet. And her capacity to admit humbly, I'm not available for it yet.
Yeah, to have that discernment.
Yes, discernment, Virgo, self-respect, self-honesty, self-accuracy. That's her North Node in Virgo. So my point is, she was, and that's for me, that's the razor's edge of being human, is where can we let that vulnerability be there just enough. It doesn't overwhelm us, doesn't take us out. We don't go into a victimization around it, but we recognize this is the love language of the heart, wanting to draw soul and self-identity closer and closer together.
I love that. The love language of the heart, wanting to draw the soul and the
self-identity
together. Oh, that's beautiful. That's, oh my, wow. This is juicy. You know, it's also cool too, in just, we could wrap up on that alone, but the fact that Venus is about to go into, for that, after the eclipse, a few days later, goes into Cancer, is going to meet up with Mars. And I feel that, so that coming out, it's a very sweet exit out of this lunar eclipse, because then Venus will be kind of co-present with Mars. And I think it'll give some kind of grace, and she'll be overcoming, you know, and so she's, you know, there's this kind of grace of that divine grace, and that love with a capital L, you know. Maybe I feel it will just assist in maybe like a salve, like a soothing salve to whatever rawness may have emerged out of this intense eclipse. What do you think?
In her highest expression, if we're available for that, absolutely. What it can also be is clamping down on emotional safety of where I still feel victimized, where I'm making being a victim to my vulnerability, or a victim to my emotional content.
Something to look for.
Center.
Yeah.
And one of the things about this eclipse too is, one of the things that Neptune is offering Ceres in this is having a longer range view of reality. Even though it's difficult beyond the immediacy of our survival needs. I mean, Chiron is in Aries and has been there. He's only halfway through his travels through Aries. So even when the nose, and there's a whole thing around that, but we are still going to be addressing, and everything in our culture and our society is showing us that everything is coming down to survival. Do I feel I can even survive? Things are happening. And so that's the predominant limbic kind of reaction. And we need to address our day-to-day needs, absolutely. But where can we make a practice? And if we start this now, where can we make a practice of also attending to one thing at a time? What can I do now? Not overreaching, not taking on too much, not getting caught in the negativity, Scorpio, and panic. Mars in Cancer can be around, I need to survive.
Reactiveness.
Reactiveness, exactly. And Venus can, when she moves into Cancer, can double down on, can show us where we are still attached to making survival the lens through which we are looking, because of it's so intense in our emotional response. But if we have a practice, a spiritual practice or a daily practice, if we do, or if we don't, but we want to start one, that's really, it's not around a deity. It's not even around a belief system. It's really, where am I still subject to belief systems that maintain separation? Jupiter with Eris. Where am I where is separation still living in me in a way? And again, Venus in Gemini, this is for your heart. Just let these questions drift around in your heart. Where am I still holding on to safety? Where am I still identifying with life is just about survival? Where am I still using my head to try to make logical sense, Gemini, of something that is beyond logic?
Wow.
So all these invitations, yeah, it just depends on our orientation to them. And we're not faulty or wrong if we have the reactions and the responses, but it's an opportunity to notice what I do, to be self-accurate, self-honest, and surrender into that moment as the only moment that counts, the moment that has. And again, what we start now will have ramifications for years to come.
Yes, yes, because that's what eclipses will do. It will ring out over time. Yeah, I love that. Wow, beautiful. Lots to think about. Very, very rich. I hope that everybody listening today has, I hope this, I know for me it has. I'm so grateful for your insights. They're just always so amazing. And it gives us hope because, yes, it can look a little scary and forbidding, but if we can, and I think what the eclipse does is it gives you this, well, harsh, difficult, whatever situation, but then, like you said, getting present in our body and feel, and just with you had with that client, like we are, if it's nothing but our higher selves, if there's some place in us that can say, stop, wait, okay, I'm gonna breathe, and I don't have to make automatic reactive choices, Mars. And the invitation is to bring that, we can just hold space in that awareness, and then, and out of that awareness, then things come in, like you were just saying, love with a capital L, the curiosity, the heart, it all just starts to fall, and it can just open that door. And all we have to do is just, if we're willing, and even you don't have to know how to do it. You just say, okay, universe, I'm willing, show me the way. I have no clue. Right.
Yes.
We're in Scorpio. I have no clue.
Exactly. You got it. And what I like to do is not just ask the universe, I ask my heart, my own central heart, what is for me to do, because that brings it home. That's the vulnerability piece, is, wow, I have access in me to the universe. It's not something outside of me. It's something that's as close as my heart.
My heart is
Wow.
the portal. Yes.
Yeah.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you. Beautifully said. Yay. Where can people find you? PreciousHumanBirth.com, right?
Yes. Yes.
Digitally, that's where they find you. Right?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've got a whole website thing going on, and it's going to be, yeah, but Precious Human Birth right now is my website. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much again for joining us. And I know we'll be fun to just kind of, as I think too, as the dust settles, because these things do come up a lot. It's very intense. The eclipse windows are always very intense, and they're designed to be that way. And then I think just to be kind with ourselves, and again, reiterate to just let these things, just feel them, and be in that space. And the answers won't come right away. It takes time for the dust to settle. I think too, I'll just say in closing, I think it's good that Jupiter is entering Taurus in the middle of May. And I feel that is going to be like this wise, when you think about like the wise goddess, the wise high priestess, that's just going to kind of settle and soften and like bless and stabilize everything that we've been through with the eclipse, and the opportunities and the rawness and and the confront in many ways. And so it will come and kind of stabilize things. It's nice that, that's happening.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And maybe my hair will stabilize. I don't know, but I can't go on. This is how it stabilizes. It's a non-stability. That's the stability, is that it's always changing and it's
That's right.
it's unknown.
Oh,
And
Pisces,
me and everybody else.
Saturn and Pisces, the reality of impermanence. That's right.
The reality of impermanence, indeed. Well, all right. Well, thank you so much. And I'm sure we will talk soon. And I'd love to hear everybody's comments. How are you guys doing? Put your comments below, and we read everything. And yeah, we're all in this together.
You have such a great audience, I have to say. Just some of the comments that I've seen under your posts and your videos, people just love you. Of course they do, and they should. And it's just like,
I love them.
yeah, clearly.
I love them. I know. I love you guys. You guys are awesome. It's like, yeah, we have a beautiful little tribe of sweet souls, and that's, I'm gonna cry now. Yes, it means so much to me, because I've been through, I have to say, you know, I've been through hell the last year and a half, losing my kitties. But I have new ones, you know, in the death and the loss, the regeneration. My sweet little Mirabelle, also known as Doll Baby, and Lucas Gabriel, both, you know, miraculous stories. So, you know, yeah, it's been really, really hard. And yet I know I've grown, and like, I know it with all these things, you don't see it right away. You see it later, or it takes time for us to have that perspective, but it does come, and there is there's always that morning after, you know, not that cheesy song from Poseidon Adventure, not that kind of but there's my Leo again. But yeah, there it is. The darkest, what is that thing? The darkest night of the soul.
It's always darkest before the dawn.
Yeah, it's always darkest before the dawn. So yeah, I just offer that to everybody. But I do appreciate and love everybody here. We do have a beautiful, lovely little tribe of souls. Everybody just so appreciated. And they're all of their comments and things, I feel everybody's is like, it's all important. We are all assisting each other. And that one comment, don't ever underestimate the light and the truth and the knowledge that one little comment can bring, one little heart. Oh, I'm crying. Yeah, I'm just flawed by the power of that all. It's really huge. Oh, this eclipse is exactly, it's a huge opposition to my Mars. Oh, but yeah. Yeah, it's big, and it's definitely about vulnerability.
Yeah.
So anyway.
Thank you for having me on again. It's always a pleasure, Irlianna, really. Yeah.
Me too. Always a pleasure. Oh, all right. Well, like I said, everybody, you're loved and blessed beyond measure, and appreciated and recognized by all of us. And I just hope this information has been, you know, assisting you all. And any questions, please, you know, hit us up. Andrea, precioushumanbirth.com, myself, the channel here, Irlianna at StarSoundAstrology.com. If you want to ask a private question, that's cool too. So whatever. Okay, everybody. Till next time. This is Andrea Michelle and Irlianna Samsara. Yeah. Have a great one. All right. Much love. Bye for now.